always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and it's wonderful to be with you on this Wednesday in June, the end of June, actually. Hope you're having a wonderful week. Hope you are, surviving. It's hump day, so that's always good. We're on the downhill slide now. We are here, of course, to talk about some stories from the world of entertainment that movies, television, celebrities, royals, all of those things that I like to talk about and hopefully you like to listen to. So we're going to start with some news from movies. And our first story is Star Wars related because there's a million Star Wars stories out right now with the Rise of Skywalker coming in December. This one deals with Daisy Ridley, who, of course, plays Rey in the new trilogy. And, of course, so it's coming out in December. We're about 6 months away from the final film in this particular trilogy. And there's a lot of speculation as to how it's going to end. There's a lot of speculation as to whether people are going to be disappointed, if they're going to be happy about it, if it's going to be a satisfying ending, if people will feel like they have closure, etc. This is all kind of a giant question mark for now, but when recently asked if she was happy with the ending, Daisy Ridley gave an answer that was short, sweet, and encouraging. And this is according to a story on News Fusion. She says, yeah, it's epic. It's very exciting. Well, of course, she can't give away anything. She can't give any spoilers. So this is not, you have to expect her to be vague, but it's very positive. She gave this answer on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. And it does, the word epic is, maybe a word that sometimes gets overused, but we do want it to be epic, right? We want this is the end of a certain era of Star Wars movies. Doesn't mean that there won't be any more Star Wars movies, but this is the end of the series that started with the original, with Han and Luke and Leia in the 1970s, and now we are coming to that conclusion because it's moving on to new generations. We're moving away from that old generation. So hopefully it is going to be epic or climactic or provide the right amount of closure. I hope so. I hope that it is going to be grand, and we are talking about a story about good and evil, and it should be sort of epic or maybe cosmic in scope, since this is a space movie. We just have to wait and see until December. I am excited. She also apparently shed some tears. She told Jimmy Fallon, "I wept," and while it's not entirely clear if that's specifically because of the film or what the franchise has meant to her personally, it's probably a little of both. She wouldn't, of course, be the only one to weep over the story. Her co-star Kerry Russell has also admitted to crying over the script for the film. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if it's a tearjerker, if it makes us cry. I mean, the first one certainly had its moments, and it's been long enough, that I'm sure even if you haven't seen the movie, that Han Solo dies in that first installment of this trilogy, and that was like the end of my childhood. But I'm excited for December so I can see this movie. In other movie news, Paul Rudd has joined the cast of Ghostbusters 3. We've talked about Ghostbusters 3 on this podcast before. Paul Rudd, you may know him from Ant-Man or from Friends, which is sometimes where I think of him from, where he was married to Phoebe, and that makes me laugh. At any rate, though, this isn't about Friends. This is about Ghostbusters 3, and it says the headline says Paul Rudd joins Ghostbusters 3, but then and then it says that he has been cast in the upcoming Ghostbusters 3, but then it also says he is in talks to play a teacher in the film. Well, okay, so that may or may not be. Carrie Coon is also in talks for a role along with Stranger Things actor Finn Wolfhard and gifted star McKenna Grace. Of course, we've mentioned Sigourney Weaver has confirmed that she will be back along with the original cast, which includes Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson. Again, Harold Ramis died in 2014, so no Egon. It makes me really sad. Anyway, the plot of the film is said to focus on a single mom and her family, with Carrie Coon playing the mom and Finn Wolfhard playing her son. The movie has also been said to connect to the first Ghostbusters from 1984, but presently it's unknown how. Jason Reitman, who is the director, previously said, "I'm not making the Juno of Ghostbusters movies. We are in every way trying to go back to the original technique and hand the movie back to the fans." Reitman also added that he considers myself the first Ghostbusters fan who wants to make a movie for my fellow Ghostbusters fans. So the untitled Ghostbusters 3 has a July 10th, 2020 release. And I like Paul Rudd, so if he's in this, that's cool. We shall see if he's in talks, but could very well be. And I'm a fan of Ghostbusters. It's another part of my childhood, along with the Star Wars movies. So hopefully they'll do a good job on this one, and that it won't make me just completely roll my eyes. But that could just be me. This next story makes me laugh, and that is that Ian Ziering is set to star in a new ScyFy movie. You may know that he has been in all 872 Sharknado movies. I don't know how many Sharknado movies there were. There were a lot. 6. There were 6 Sharknado movies, and he was in that series. He is now doing another movie for ScyFy, and this one is called Zombie Tidal Wave. Okay, so it sounds like another sort of combination of natural phenomenon and weirdness. It is set to premiere on August 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will feature Ziering as veteran sailor Hunter Shaw, who brings his island community together to fight off a horde of the undead before they can reach the mainland. Well, thank you for that. I don't want the horde of the undead to reach the mainland. Let's see, Anthony C. Ferranti penned the script along with producer Darby Parker and Josh LeBlanc, and it's based off an original story by Ziering and Thunder Levine. The project was filmed on location in Thailand. Zombie Tidal Wave will launch as part of ScyFy's Off the Deep End weekend block of programming that will also include the Sharknado films along with Zombie Shark, Atomic Shark, and Megalodon, among other made-for-television movies. Ziering recently said, "Zombie Tidal Wave offered the opportunity to see my original concept through to release. It is incredibly satisfying to be a creator and work in all facets of the process beyond my contributions as an actor. Darby and I want to continue to curate more projects together in this hands-on manner, and I can't wait to bring more of my acting and directing peers and new production partners along with us." So Ziering, you probably know, is also set to star in Fox's upcoming Beverly Hills 90210 revival, and it is titled BH 90210. It will feature members of the original cast, and that's premiering on August 7th. So August will be a big month for Ziering, and it seems like he's found his niche. 90210 and very interesting, strange movies on ScyFy, and I can't blame him for that. If he's having fun and he's doing what he loves, then more power to him. I think I saw most of the first Sharknado movie. I'm not sure. Maybe I only saw bits and pieces of it, but I certainly haven't seen the other 5, and I'm not saying anything against them if you're a big fan of somebody had to be watching them, and there are 6 movies. Not totally my cup of tea, so I checked out the first one because I thought the concept was hilarious and crazy, and hilariously crazy, and then I did not watch the rest of them. At any rate, zombies, big thing right now, so it makes sense to do a zombie movie. And a tidal wave of zombies, that's a lot of zombies. On that note, we are going to take our first break of the podcast. When we come back, we'll be talking about some television news from the world of entertainment. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, and I will be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast. Before the break, we, of course, were talking about tidal wave of zombies because why not? And we are now going to move on to some television-related news. The first is a story involving Lena Headey. You may know her from playing Cersei in Game of Thrones. She was also on the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and she's been in other things as well. But, Game of Thrones has only been over for a few weeks, at least for those of us who watched it. It's been over a little longer for the people who acted in it in terms of filming, but now the actress has been cast in a dramedy pilot called Rita, and this is will be on Showtime. She's been cast for the pilot for Showtime. Headey will star as the title character, which is described as a headstrong, unconventional teacher and single mother who takes on every kind of authority, as well as her family, in a messy and unfiltered way. That's according to Showtime. The Emmy nominee will also serve as an executive producer. Rita is a deliciously subversive character who will make you laugh and cry as she continuously challenges the hypocrisy around her, said Jana Winograde, one of the network's presidents of entertainment. It goes without saying that Lena Headey is a force whose essence is ideal to take on this wonderfully dynamic lead role. Like all pilots, of course, once completed, the project will be evaluated for series consideration by the network. Christian Torp, who created the Danish series on which the American adaptation is based, will write this pilot as well. In the Danish version of the show, Millie Dennison was the star of that, and it ran for 4 seasons. So good luck on that show. Again, I like Lena Headey a lot. I did not like Cersei, but she made me not like Cersei, and that was her job. I really liked her in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, so I'm excited to see her in a new role and see how she does and see if this pilot takes off and gets picked up. In other TV news, Castle Rock season 2 is coming, and it will be guest starring Robin Wigert, Sarah Gadon, G-A-D-O-N, Allison Wright, and Greg Gunberg. They are all set to guest star on the second season. If you are unfamiliar with Castle Rock, it's on Hulu. It is a psychological horror series from J.J. Abrams and Stephen King. Oh, that is a combination right there. Stephen King and J.J. Abrams. Stephen King, of course, writes horror books, along with some that aren't horror, but mostly horror. I mean, he wrote The Stand and others. And J.J. Abrams, who brought us, among other things, Lost. Whew, that's just a combination. At any rate, in season 2 of Castle Rock, a feud between warring clans comes to a boil when budding psychopath Annie Wilkes, who's played by Lizzie Kaplan, Stephen King's nurse from hell, gets waylaid in Castle Rock. Season 2 cast also include Paul Sparks, Yrsa Warsama, Barked Abdi, Elsie Fisher, and Matthew Allen. Wiegert will play Chrysilda Wilkes, Annie's mother. Gadone is Rita Green, a vengeful woman from Annie's past. Wright will portray Valerie, a kind-hearted local who explores the town's evil history. And Grunberg is Sheriff Boucher, a local official who faces off against a brewing dark force in Castle Rock. And Greg Grunberg just makes me think of Alias, and I loved him in Alias, as well as, what else was he in? He was in Felicity, wasn't he? I think so. I could be wrong. Don't send me hate mail. At any rate, I like Greg Grunberg. So, Sam Shaw and Dustin Thomason developed the project for television and also serve as executive producers along with J.J. Abrams, Ben Stevenson, Dustin Thomason, Vince Calandra, Sam Shaw, Stephen King, and Liz Glotzer. Castle Rock hails from Bad Robot Productions in association with Warner Brothers Television. And there you go. So we have those 4, at least, coming on as guest stars. Are you excited for season 2 of Castle Rock? I have heard good things about the first season. I'm not a huge fan of horror, as I've mentioned before, so I haven't really watched it much, but and psychological. I can do psychological sometimes, but psychological horror, I don't know. I like to sleep at night, so I tend to stay away from things that are going to give me nightmares. Moving on from that, this next story I have classified as celebrity news, although you could maybe classify it under movie news since it does deal with Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal, who star in the new Spider-Man Far From Home movie. But it's not about the movie necessarily. It is that Gyllenhaal and Holland have been cosplaying as SNL's Roxbury guys. If you aren't familiar with these guys, oh man, it's a sketch from the 90s. It makes me, it's so bad. It's so bad. It stars, not stars, does it star? I guess there was a movie, so yes, it could star. There was a Night at the Roxbury movie, and Will Ferrell and Catan. I did this with Heidi once a while back too when we were talking about these guys. It will come to me, but they are just these guys in. You remember? Okay, now I'm aging myself, but in the 70s it was Two Wild and Crazy Guys. They're not. They're kind of like that, but not quite like that. So they're 2 guys in a nightclub, and they just kind of mob on women. It's really quite sexist, but also horrifyingly funny in some ways. At any rate, so the press tours for Marvel movies are apparently grueling marathons, as you can only imagine. So stars have found some fun ways to keep the experience of hotel hopping and repetitive questioning fresh. In this case, the case of Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal as they promote Spider-Man Far From Home. Their choice of fashion for publicity events has fans questioning if they aren't playing a prank of their own. So they have been wearing, t-shirts and blazers and chains and, in the same colors even as, as the original stars. That is hilarious. Chris Kattan. See, I knew I would come up with it eventually. So Chris Kattan and Will Ferrell did this sketch on Saturday Night Live. They played Steve and Doug Bootaby. I never even knew that they had names. My friends and I just called them the head bopping guys because that's kind of what they did. The 2 club guy caricatures had a penchant for invading women's personal space on the dance floor with some tag team moves that sent drinks flying and women scrambling to escape. The sketch was popular enough to be spun out into a 1998 movie whose biggest claim to notoriety is how savagely it was received. Night at the Roxbury only extended the myth of the SNL curse, which was attributed to the many failed attempts to spin the show's sketches into movies. Oh goodness, those outfits. I kind of hope that they are having some sort of personal joke, because if they are dressed like that, I don't know which is funnier, if they're just dressed like that in a non-ironic sort of way, or are they making a nod to the Night at the Roxbury boys? That is hilarious. Like many stars who are doing press tours, I would imagine that they have stylists on their teams who do their best to keep them looking well dressed and according to the latest fashion trends. Of course, the two stars could also be having a bit of fun with their wardrobe choices, which would be perfectly understandable. As stated, Marvel press tours are definitely grueling in their length and repetitive, so a few in-jokes to keep things light is probably a good idea. If this isn't in any way an intentional ode to Night at the Roxbury, then as I said, this article says what I was thinking. Gyllenhaal is not helping his case by wearing that chain. He's wearing a big gold chain. Not a big gold chain, but he's wearing a gold chain outside of his t-shirt. And, at any rate, it still makes me laugh because it just takes me back to that really bad sketch from the 90s that never should have been made into a movie. And I did not see the movie, although I know people who have, and they regretted it. On that note, we are going to take that second break of the podcast. And when we come back, we'll be moving to more celebrity news, but this time of the royal variety and then some other news. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast. Before the break, we were talking about the Night at the Roxbury as well as Spider-Man Far From Home, a combination that I'm not sure anybody else would ever put together, but that's okay. There is now, we're moving on to a story about Prince William and then one about Prince Harry. So we've got the royal category of today's episode, and Prince William was recently speaking. Of course, it's the end of Pride Month, and Prince William recently participated in an LGBTQ event. He visited the Albert Kennedy Trust on Wednesday for an event which focused on LGBTQ youth homelessness, which is still a huge issue in the UK. As well as here and around the world, because in 2019, parents are still kicking their kids out of the house for being gay. William spoke to some of the LGBTQ youths, and he ended up getting personal. He was asked what his reaction would be if one of his children was gay. His response was, "It would be absolutely fine by me." So, of course, William is the father of 3, George, who is 5, Charlotte, who is 4, and Louis, who's 1. And, the question was, what if one of them were to come to him at some point and tell him that they were gay? And he said, "Do you know what? I've been giving that some thought recently because a couple of other parents said that to me as well. I think you really don't start thinking about that until you are a parent. And I think, obviously, absolutely fine by me." He went on to say that he and his wife, Kate Middleton, had talked about the possibility and how they'd give their children the best support they could, especially considering their role in the public eye. He went on to say, "The one thing I'd be worried about is how they, particularly the roles my children fill, is how that is going to be interpreted and seen." So Catherine and I have been doing a lot of talking about it to make sure they were prepared. I think communication is so important with everything in order to help understand it. You've got to talk a lot about stuff and make sure how to support each other and how to go through the process. It worries me not because of them being gay. It worries me as to how everyone else will react and perceive it, and then the pressure is then on them. And, that's a pretty good answer, and I appreciate that he answered it so honestly and so thoroughly, and that he and Kate seem to have spoken about it and are preparing for it, because they are in the public eye. I have no idea what it means to be gay in the royal family. I don't have any idea, but if you have supportive parents, one of whom will one day be king, you're probably gonna find a solution, I hope. At any rate, I thought it was a nice answer, and just makes me like them even more, even though I've never met any of them and never will. I said we would move on next to Prince Harry, and that is that Harry, Meghan, and the baby Archie, are going to make a visit to South Africa. And that is later this year in their first official tour as a family. This was announced by Buckingham Palace. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex will undertake an official visit to South Africa this autumn at the request of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, the palace said in a statement. Harry, who will also visit Angola and Malawi at the request of Britain's Foreign Office and conduct a working trip to Botswana while in the region. Harry and Meghan said on their Instagram account that it would be their first official tour as a family. Archie was born on May 6th, and he is set to go with them. Their first official trip as a married couple was a 16-day tour of Australia, Fiji, Tonga, and New Zealand in October of 2018, when she was pregnant with said baby. She has recently made her first public appearance since giving birth to Archie. That was at the Queen's official birthday, which we talked about on another podcast. The couple said they are excited about the trip, communicating by their seemingly preferred method of communication, which is their Instagram account. And the quote says, "The Duke and Duchess are really looking forward to meeting so many of you on the ground and continuing to raise awareness of the high impact work local communities are doing across the Commonwealth and beyond," said that post from the palace. So I'm looking forward to more. I hope there's pictures of more of baby's face than just from his nose up, after that Father's Day post. But I'm just being selfish, and I want to see the baby's whole face. In some sadder news, there have been some celebrity deaths this week, one of whom I saw a few days ago, and that was the death of Judith Krantz. You may or may not know her, depending on if you're a big reader and if you're a romance reader. She was an American author, best known for her sex and shopping novels. I think one of the more famous ones is Scruples. And I'm trying to remember if I read any of her in high school when I was going through my, I'm not supposed to be reading this phase. So this article is talking about her obituary, and it is her obituary, and it says, "The shopping in the novels of Judith Krantz had an intensity the sex could never match. There were antiques, art, and bibelots on offer, plus real estate in select venues, but fashion always came first. Krantz believed that clothes comfort women, and she was fervent about sartorial transformation. I write about clothes as magical things that can change you. The character suddenly appears, and that those characters were desirable and desiring only when perfectly dressed." Krantz, who died at age 91, published her first novel, Scruples. Its title was the name of the imagined Beverly Hills boutique in 1978, when top international brands had not yet been absorbed into conglomerates and did not have branches around the globe nor advertise across multiple spreads in the glossies. Couture was mutating into a spectacle confected to sell perfumes. This is the most detailed obituary I have ever seen. It's really impressive. At any rate, we won't read through the whole thing because it is longer than I originally thought. When I first read through it, I apparently missed a screen. At any rate, so talking about her first novel, Scruples, and she filled 10 novels with long researched detail. They sold 85 million copies in more than 50 languages. The So she was popular, and unlike some of her heroines, Krantz did not start out poor, but she still felt she had been denied. She told the New York Times that she kept dreaming in childhood that her mother would bring her home, among other goodies, a big package of cashmere sweaters. Mother never delivered. If she had, I never would have known the power, magic, and mystery clothes could have. Out of that yearning, you get fiction. That is hilarious. So she wrote lots and lots of novels. That's, of course, not an official number, but she did retire from novels in 1998. By then, the fashion business, especially at its luxe, had become everybody's business, and the inside info about glamour had been her stock in trade. It was now freely available, so Krantz's fairy tale fictions could not compete with the likes of the Kardashians, even though their world had been very much shaped by her imaginings. Her memoir, subtitled The Confessions of a Nice Jewish Girl, revealed that she was not nice, but spoiled, manipulative, and driven. It included the requisite sex, but her most vivid memories were of the frocks, described right down to the trimmings on her first best dress. Her husband died in 2007. Her sons survive her. She is a huge name in romance novels, and while I was never a huge reader of hers, her name is just out there. It's just up there with steamy romance. And, as a teenager, it seemed scandalous to read her. And I do believe I read some of hers in high school, but then I moved on to other stuff, as you do. So rest in peace, Judith Krantz, and you'll be remembered through your novels for sure. The other celebrity death that has been reported this week is that Max Wright died after a battle with cancer. He was 75. If that name doesn't sound familiar to you, he's probably, he's well known. I don't know if he's best well known for his role in the hit 80s sitcom Alf. If you aren't old enough to remember Alf, I don't know how to explain it to you. I do know. I mean, it's about an alien living with a family, and the alien is played by a Muppet. I'm sure if you saw a picture, you would recognize Alf in some way. So according to reports, Wright's family announced that he did die in his Hermosa Beach home after a long battle with cancer. He was diagnosed with lymphoma in 1995, but had been in remission. The late actor appeared in many shows and movies, but was best known as Willie Tanner from the show Alf. Some of his other credits include shows like Buffalo Bill, The Drew Carey Show, Cheers, and films such as All That Jazz, Reds, The Sting 2, and Soul Man. Wright lost his wife Linda Ibarradondo to breast cancer in 2017. They had 2 children together. So again, may he rest in peace. Many people will have very fond memories of Alf from their childhood. I used to watch it. It wasn't my favorite sitcom from the 80s, but I did watch it. And, it's the end of an era. So rest in peace to Max Wright as well. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the GSMC Entertainment Podcast. Please join me again next time when we'll see what else is going on in the world of entertainment. Thanks, and have a great day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.